Hello internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion. Those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book. Today's book is going to be Illusive by Emily Lloyd Jones. Now this was a disappointment for me. I am not surprised that it disappointed me. I bought this close to a year ago and I had started it then because this book is about people with powers, so that is something that I'm always willing to try. I love having superpowers of some sort in my book. And I had read it, I had read like a couple chapters in the first time, 63 pages in the first time I attempted it. I was just not enjoying myself. I was finding a lot of issue with the book, with the world building, and I put it down. A couple months ago, I finished this book, and I was right. I did not enjoy this. This book for me follows into the same vein as Vast in the Night or The Girl from Everywhere, where it was just more of a disappointment than something that I'm truly angry at. Well, there are definitely books that I'm just infuriated at. This was just a disappointment in I saw more potential, and it brought up a lot of concepts that I'm really tired of seeing in books. So let's go on from there. So the synopsis of this book is we live in a world where a disease like raved the earth. Like people just started falling dead of this disease. A company came out with a cure, a vaccine that was supposed to make you immune to these diseases. So many people got this vaccine as fast as possible because they didn't want to die. However, one of the side effects of this vaccine was that it woke up a dormant gene in many people and ended up giving them abilities. Now these people don't get random abilities like say mutants or inhumans or anything like that. They fall into like 6 categories of what type of power was latent and was awakened in your body. Now we follow a main girl and she is called an Illusive. What her power is that she can create illusions. Now they're not hard to copy illusions, they're just mirages, images that she can create that are very realistic to the eye. Now she has been raised by a man who can levitate. He's a levitatus or something like that. And she has been raised by this guy from a young age, and they end up going on a heist in this book to collect something, and then the government gets involved, and then it's a whole thing about these immune people who have powers. The overall idea of the plot was good. That was enjoyable. It was more of the details that I wasn't really fond of. So this book starts off and this girl is not very smart, and I could not figure out why she kept making the most ridiculously stupid decisions, because as we find out, her foster father is a criminal mastermind. He's a genius. He's been teaching her the trades forever and a half. Like she's been with him for a long time. Yes, she makes very, very dumb mistakes. She refuses to tell him very important things that later come back to bite him and bite her, and just she creates a lot of the issues that she has to deal with, and I was not there for that. I did like the introduction of all of these different types of abilities that you could have. I thought they were very interesting, but it was all bogged down by the fact that this main character just kept making ridiculously stupid decisions. Within the first book, she gets caught by some mobsters who threaten her and tell her, you have to give us such and such amount of money that you just stole from a bank. And instead of telling her foster father, she decides to hide it. She doesn't have this money. She thinks maybe the heist will give us this money. The heist goes down, but the payment doesn't come through, and all of this sort of stuff. And all I can think in my head is just tell your foster father and he will probably give you the money. It's like, it was only like 10-20, it was like 40 grand at most, and yeah, that's a lot of money to me, poor college kid. But if you're criminals who are always stealing stuff and you live in this high class little cul-de-sac society where all the rich people do and you are constantly stealing money, I think that you can get this money. What I didn't understand was she stole the money and she apparently put it all in offshore accounts. How did she get like physical dollars into offshore accounts so fast without getting any of this back? Like I was so confused how this girl could not have this money. Then we get to the heist. The heist revolves around the immune, the vaccine, and the people who created the vaccine, because as we find out while we're going through this, the creators of the vaccine killed his whole family and smashed the original like formula and stuff, so no one could like produce immunes by themselves, so this vaccine no longer exists. However, due to this heist and yada yada yada, we find out that the vaccine is back and it can be produced again, but now the US government wants it because they want control over what kind of immunes they create, because they have a special task force of immunes, and there's this whole little side thing of the task force of immunes that is really interesting. You know, it's probably a lot more fascinating than the main character because she was really stupid. But there was that, and then after we get into the heist, then it's more running from the cops, running from the special division of the government who's also looking for this vaccine formula, and then just this girl blundering through everything over and over and over again. And yet again, I kept getting frustrated because she would make very, very dumb decisions where I'm just like, why are you not knowing these things? Like, why can't she fight well? She's been raised by a criminal mastermind. I think, like, knowing this dude, he probably attempted to teach her self-defense. Like, why isn't her powers great? Because she doesn't practice. That's why. Because she's lazy. And then we find out about another character who was raised by these criminal masterminds, by this man who raised her and another man, because they were in a relationship before they broke up and now they're back together sort of for the sake of the heist. Either way, there is another character introduced and he is like an evil genius, and I'm like, that makes more sense. He was raised by these two really smart people who were really, really intelligent, who knew the way of the world, who knew kind of how to con your way through this, how to like act like you knew what was going on and just like survive and be a master manipulator. And he took up all those skills and is really good at it. Plus, when we learn about his powers, it makes even more sense why he's so great at it. But this girl is absolutely crap about it, and she's such a stupid character. And then we have to sit through a horrible love triangle between one of her best friends and this new kid that shows up just like part way through the book, like towards the end, because of plot reasons. And I was just like, why is this a love triangle? Like, no, this should not be a thing that I have to sit through. But I did. I'm going to complain about one last thing. So one of the reoccurring problems that happens in this book is that this girl has the power of illusions. Now, being an illusionist is something that's pretty rare. It's not the rarest power that you can have, but it's up there in the top 3. There's like 6 illusionists in the world. Like, she is of a very limited quantity. We learn she has this torrid backstory and everything, and that kind of affects how her powers work. But what I don't understand is why she has never trained them. Now, this girl can only create illusions around herself. And whenever she tries to expand these illusions past herself to, say, an area surrounding herself, or maybe a moving object or something like that, she ends up getting headaches and she says, oh, I can't do it, and this is too difficult, and this is too hard. And this is what I don't understand. And this is a continuous trope that I hate. Why don't people practice when they have abilities? Like, if I was an illusionist, I would be practicing every day, testing my boundaries, seeing how far I could spread it, how long I could hold an illusion, around what things I could hold an illusion, whether or not I could hold it around a moving object. And this girl has been aware of her powers for a really long time, and she has been in like dangerous environments for a really long time, and she has been living with a guy who is also another person who has powers, although his are different from hers. Now, what I'm not understanding is, as far as I'm aware, she probably had tons of time to be practicing on expanding her powers, on expanding her range and her abilities, but instead, she's just been getting weaker and weaker and weaker to the point that she is a detriment a lot of the time. And I don't get why that is a thing. Like, why do people not practice when they have this really special ability that they know is going to help them survive? It's like you're a master kung fu artist, but you're being like chased down every day, and you know what you don't do? You don't practice kung fu. It's like, why wouldn't you practice the one thing that you're a prodigy at, and instead just sit around and do nothing when you're being chased all day, every day? And I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it, because we're supposed to feel bad for her because she's like struggling so much at certain points and stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, it's your own fault. You should have freaking practiced your powers, because everyone else is telling me that in theory, you being an elusive should be able to do these things. And people keep telling her, you should be able to do more with your powers than you're currently doing. Yet does she? No, because she doesn't practice, and she's irritating and annoying, and did I mention she is not that intelligent. So I don't know how she came to be raised by one criminal mastermind genius and didn't come off with something rubbing off on her in the form of intelligence. But that is whatever, because like I don't know why I'm surprised, because when we hear her backstory, it was like, you weren't a smart kid either, but I'm gonna let it go. I'm just gonna say this book was a disappointing book, because it has some really interesting premise, this idea that this vaccine could give you powers, this idea that the government wanted this vaccine again, that there was a special task force, some of the powers introduced, that there were certain categories of powers, like all of the concepts, the plot-wise, objectively, were an awesome idea. The execution, I was not a fan of. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Zero. Zilch. Not a fan. So, Illusive was a book that I read, that I was highly disappointed in, that I think could have been better. So, disappointment always around. So comment down below if you find it irritating when main characters won't practice with whatever special ability that they have, and this ends up becoming an issue because they're like struggling with their special ability, but you're thinking in your head, boy, if you had just practiced, you wouldn't be in this situation the way you are, because that's how I feel. If you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click on those buddy buttons down below, and goodbye, Internet.